Let's bring in our next guest. She is Kate Monroe. She's a Marine veteran, and she's the CEO of VetComm US and founder of Border Vets. Kate, welcome to the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Now, it says here that you are from California and you are much more familiar with Kamala Harris than we are. She's been pretty much hidden away the last 3.5 years. She's failed at the job that she was given as border czar. What was her reputation as Attorney General of California?
Well, I'm in San Diego, and, all throughout California, when they passed Prop 47, which had happened under her tenure, it essentially made crime legal here in California. And I know tons of people that work in different retail sectors, and the amount of theft and smash and grab just went out through the roof. And we lost so many big box stores and so many small chain stores because people just said, I am not here for whatever kind of insanity you're trying to perpetrate on the business owners, small and large, here in California. That's one massive failure, totally apart from what she should have been doing as the border czar, what she should have been doing as a vice president. But here in California, making crime legal is absolutely absurd. And then locking up as many black and brown men as she possibly could, even when she was presented with facts where they should be left out, she left them in jail and in prison. So for me, I don't really understand how she's even on the menu for these communities. But alas, people only know what they know.
Kate, thank you so much for your service to our country as a Marine and also as someone who continues to serve our country and helping out the homeless, especially those who need the most assistance, the homeless, the disabled veterans, which we owe so much to. And Kate, you point out on your Twitter X feed that the homeless situation in general in California is at such a peak point that the public is at risk. It's so funny, Kate, because Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris want to tell us how great California is. I think it used to be great. It's a wonderful place to visit. But for the people that have to live there every day, it's probably one of the toughest places on the planet, right? And this should be a state that should be thriving and succeeding every day, right? Is it because of the progressive policies of Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom that have gotten you all to this point?
1,000% their progressive policies. I mean, in some regard, the Californians should be able to reverse tax the state for the nonsense that we have to deal with here, with an open border, with the level of homeless, drugs, lawlessness, the filth. When I go down to these encampments, I'm standing, sometimes on other people's feces, on needles all over the ground. I unknowingly one day bought a soda off a drug dealer. There's a drug dealer in these areas of San Diego, LA, up in the Tenderloin, every 5 feet, wherever there's homeless people. And what they have done here to California it's saddening. As a person who grew up here, who was born here, there's been a mass exodus from our state to other states. Hopefully they don't bring our policies and their, their ideology to these other states. But it's very sad what they have done here to one of the most beautiful, thriving states in the country.
Speaking with Kate Monroe, she's a Marine Corps veteran and CEO of VetComm.us and founder of Border Vets. Kate, I want to talk to you about an article that I read recently that was really disturbing to me. It was a Pentagon study that came out in 2019 that showed that suicide was the leading cause of death among active duty soldiers from 2014 to 2019. There were 833 suicide deaths during that time period. Talk about that statistic and why are soldiers feeling so hopeless that they are willing to take their lives?
Well, as a CEO of VetComm, we, are making claims for veterans every day. And I can tell you lack of continuity of care as veterans is one of the leading, things that causes the suicide rate to be, close to 22 a day. In the veteran community, 15 homeless vets die per day. But if we're talking about the active duty service member, a lot of them don't want to go claim any of their mental health because they don't want to get kicked out. So rather than get the care that they need for their mental health, for the suicide, for the guilt that they have, the survivor's guilt, when their friends, die in war, for all of these other things, no one ever treats them. And then they become part of the homeless population later and end up killing themselves. So, a lot of lack of continuity of care is to blame. Now, sadly, under the Trump administration, he, had this idea of community care and they were getting good care, these veterans. And now they are not. Community care has essentially been wiped out. I think you might have seen somebody did a TikTok. One of these veterans was just crying his eyes out, talking about how many times he had to switch mental health care providers. And it's not a wonder that more people die in the parking lot of a VA center than any other place.
Kate, you would think with the trillions of dollars that our government spends every single year, and the fact that Democrats and the left have had this, quote, war on poverty for, 70, 80 years now, that they would have accomplished something with all these trillions and with all these decades. But it seems like the problems are worse now than better, probably highlighting, I would say absolutely highlighting the need for the organizations that you've helped found and run. What are you all doing differently that I would imagine has much more success than what the government does so badly?
Well, with VetComm, we're a publicly traded, for-profit company. On that side, we are helping veterans essentially get through the landmine that's before them, all the enmity that's between them and the VA. So, in 90 to 120 days, as a private company, we are able to help veterans receive anywhere from $1,000 to $3,600 a month in a very short period of time for a very inexpensive cost. Whereas if they try to do it themselves, the VA is basically going to tell them no, and they are going to march off with nothing. The other thing that we do on the not-for-profit side is we go and help all of these veterans that are in homeless transitionary housing get their funds from the VA. So again, we take them through the entire process and get them paid so they have money to transition out of this housing list. If you leave this to all these charities, I go rip apart the homeless industrial complex. Here in California, we've spent billions and billions and billions of dollars to make the problem larger and spent nothing on the solution. And you wonder why when Gavin Newsom's out parading around doing photo ops in empty encampments, throwing away 6 pieces of trash, that isn't going to cut it. You created a multi-billion-dollar industry around keeping people homeless, and now you want to pretend like you're going to fix it? That's laughable.
Speaking with Kate Monroe, Marine Corps veteran, CEO of VetComm.us, and founder of Border Vets as well. As my partner said earlier, I too want to thank you for your service to our nation, Kate. And I want to get your thoughts on the brewing controversy with the Democratic vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz, Governor Tim Walz. He's being accused by J.D. Vance of stolen valor for one, misrepresenting his final rank while he was in the military, and the reasons why he decided to retire. Your thoughts on that as a fellow soldier?
Yeah, as a fellow service member veteran, I first would say thanks for your service, right? I would never want to say you didn't serve or squash the fact that you did serve. Both vice president candidates served. The interesting thing, though, is the dichotomy between the two. One of them served in the Marine Corps, which I also served in the Marine Corps. And because he was in journalism, he sort of feels a little less than all these heroes that he has in his mind. So he doesn't talk about his service a ton, even though he served in the Marine Corps. Juxtapose that to Tim Walz, who served in the National Guard. Everybody can choose whatever service. But you pretended to be a rank you were not. So you're very sneaky and deceptive. You want to talk about taking away people's guns that you carried in war, which you did not. So I've had about 300 veterans reach out to me and say, Kate, this is not a man that we can trust with the safety of our nation. He is a national security risk. Anyone who's willing to lie about their service, why even lie about your service? You served. That there's valor in that. Why would you steal your own valor? Why would you lessen and diminish your service and the service of millions and millions of people before you by lying to the American public just to get into office? So if you're willing to lie about that, you'll lie about anything. And I had a veteran the other day tell me, he said, everybody keeps calling him Tampon Tim for putting his tampons in the boys' restroom. But he said, I'm going to call him Tall Tale Tampon Tim, because it's no different. You go out with your buddies and go fishing and you lie about how big your fish is. Well, there was no reason to lie about it. Y'all went fishing, you caught a fish. Mm-hmm. And so the veteran community is not really very happy about his stance on, the Second Amendment gun rights, and not so happy that he decided to completely lie about the nature of his service.
Yeah. men never lie about how big things are when it comes to fish.
Right, they don't.
Right, Tim?
That's for sure. Well played. Kate Monroe, our guest this afternoon, Marine Corps veteran, CEO, founder of a multitude of awesome organizations helping our most troubled veterans, featured on Fox News, Newsmax, Washington Times, and now on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show, Newstalk STL. Kate, would you tell us about the real Kamala Harris? This Kamala Harris that just popped up 3 weeks ago says that she's a moderate, that she doesn't apparently share any of the views that her boss, her partner, Joe Biden, shared over the last 3 years. So I want to know, how was Kamala Harris in California? You've been watching her a lot longer than the rest of us have. And secondly, did she ever give interviews back then, or has she always been someone who generally avoided speaking on camera?
Well, she avoids speaking on camera unless it's done in some echo chamber where everyone has an affinity for her and she can sit and laugh. I mean, if you look at a lot of the things that she's done, she just came out to try to take from, President Trump the no tax on tips.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally not your idea. In fact, you were the tie-breaking vote that ensured, in fact, that they were taxed. So now you're going to come out and say that this is your idea. Sorry, hard pass. It's not your idea. You want to talk about what you're going to do on the border? I might be confused. Maybe I'm the border czar with going down there with my razor wire and securing the border. You certainly are not the border czar. This is where you're going to get me fired up. You want to do something on the border? Well, guess what, lady? You had a chance to do something. You didn't even visit the damn border, even when I invited you to go there to show you what you did. So this is a woman who will say and do anything to power grab and get into this office. Will do anything, will be anyone, will change her dialect, her race, her stance on anything. Any American that is hoodwinked by this does not have eyes and ears.
Hey, I tell you one thing that may fire you up also, and which has me fired up. I want to get your thoughts on the recent assassination attempt of President Trump and the details that have come forward that showed the lackadaisical, for lack of better words, security apparatus to keep President Trump safe. Your thoughts on this? I mean, if you were a conspiratorial person, it's almost like they knew this was going to happen and they basically looked the other way. And if it happens, oops, we'll study it later and do better practices later.
Well, you know what? When you stack up enough facts on top of each other, they're not in a conspiracy anymore. Some things are what they are. 2 + 2 is 4. They absolutely did know that this was going to happen. It's already turned out that the ladder was already there. He was already allowed to put his gun there. There's been reports of 2 to 3 different gunmen. They did nothing to secure the safety of the president. Nothing, not a single thing. The amount of insidious evil that is up against President Trump is like in no other time and place that we've ever had in our country. The fact that he did not get killed is literally divine intervention. The amount of things that were stacked up against him that day to ensure, in fact, that he did lose his life is crazy. Only divine intervention could have given us the fact that he is still alive. And for that administration to have barely said a word about it is also disgusting, because you got to know they would have been happy, tickled to death if we would have lost President Trump. Tickled to death.
And that is Kate Monroe, Marine Corps veteran, CEO of VetComm.us and founder of Border Vets. Kate, we really enjoyed having you on. If folks want to get more information about you and your appearances on national TV, how would they go about doing that?
Well, the 2 easiest ways to reach out, if you're looking into what does Kate do, in the world for veterans and otherwise, follow me on X at Kate Monroe CEO. That's my same handle on Facebook and on Instagram. But if you're a veteran listening and you're not collecting what you should be from the VA, look us up on VetComm.us, VetComm.us. We will flat get it done for you in no time.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you'll come back on the show again in the future.
Yep, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Kate Monroe.